remote commission meeting at the Port of Olympia. Today's April 12th, 2021. The Port of Olympia is working diligently to address the threat posed by COVID-19 to Thurston County, the state of Washington, and the United States. On March 16, 2020, the Commission adopted Resolution 2020-03, authorizing certain emergency powers in light of the COVID-19 outbreak, including invoking applicable emergency exemptions to meeting notice requirements and location restrictions of the Open Public Meetings Act. Pursuant to this resolution, the Port of Olympia Commission is conducting today's meeting remotely. The Port is following the guidance from the Thurston County Health Department to take all efforts to prevent the spread of this virus and is acting in the interest of the safety and welfare of the public, the community, and our employees to limit its spread. So thank you all for attending. First off, I'd like to ask Commissioner McGregor, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight?
Absolutely. Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner.
My
Next up is the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I have an amendment, if I might. I would like to move the advisory calendar item LAYBERTH opportunity up to be number 1 under action other calendar and relabel the review of the work session topics as number 2. And then since there is no advisory calendar, eliminate L, which is public comment on advisory items. We'll take public comment on action other items.
Thank you, Commissioner. So that it's been moved to move the advisory calendar item called LAYBERTH opportunity to item 1 under the action other calendar, and also to move the existing item 1 under action other calendar review of work session topics, move that to item 2. Is there a second?
I will second for the purpose of discussion.
So it's been moved and seconded. Commissioner Zita, you'd like to discuss?
Yes. We have agreed to discuss items on advisory, to provide opportunities for due consideration by the commission, and to provide public comment, which gives us sometimes deeper insight into issues than we may have ourselves. So we should stick with our usual process and keep the LAYBERTH opportunity on advisory and consider it for action next time.
Thank you, Commissioner Zita. And I assume, Commissioner McGregor, that this is a time-sensitive request that you're making because Commissioner Zita is exactly right. Typically, we have an advisory calendar and 2 weeks later, we have a action calendar on the same item. So are you suggesting this is time sensitive?
I believe it is time sensitive. And also by moving it forward, we've already had discussion on LAYBERTH opportunity when we had the MARAD vessels come in, and we approved that and moved that forward. This is very similar in nature, except it's 1 vessel and not 2, but providing the same almost identical same revenue with some exception. But it is also the fact that if this, once this document is signed by the vendor, which should happen momentarily, it gives them an extra 3 to 4 weeks of preparing for shore power and eliminate the need for additional time of a generator running to support the ship.
And my further comment is that in reading the packet, I see that it is time sensitive because the expected arrival, assuming the commission approves this action, might be as early as May 7th or so. And that definitely is right around the corner. I do think that it's problematic to have an action other item on something of this import, but I want to, so I'd like to assure my fellow commissioners that just because it's action other doesn't mean well, it could mean one of two things: a successful action or not no action. So, but it has been moved and seconded. So, I'm duty bound as the chair to bring it to a vote after we're done discussing. I see Commissioner Zeta has her hand up.
I appreciate that Commissioner McGregor feels this is time sensitive, and that it is similar to the MARAD issue with the ready reserve ships that came before us months ago. Of course, that contract didn't work out. And when we rush into things, sometimes we get surprised that something might have been overlooked. Therefore, I caution us against rushing into this. There are also some important differences to the previous contract. For example, who's paying for the shore power? I think it's us.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. So at this time, it's been moved to amend the agenda for tonight's meeting by moving the LAYBERTH opportunity from the advisory calendar up to action other calendar, not number 1, and move the review of work session topics to action other calendar number 2. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed, nay. And I call for a roll call, and I call for a recording of my objection.
Very well, Commissioner Zeta. That is noted. I'm sure Aspen will take that into account and do the roll call. Okay, so we have an agenda. So moving on to the item D, Executive Director Report.
I think I'm unmuted. Am I unmuted?
Can hear you,
Yes.
Sam.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Commission, and good evening. Can you go to the next slide, please? Well, with this glorious weather we have, the boating season is upon us. And so we are pleased to welcome 5 new Harbor Patrol volunteers. The volunteers have been undergoing orientation, which consists of training sessions and a virtual overview of the port. These volunteers, like many of our operations, are considering modifications to our operations given the phase 3 reopening that we're in. So we're continuing to make modifications as more and more people get vaccinated, and we can operate in slightly different ways. Next slide. I am very pleased to announce that the Port of Olympia has met benchmarks on the stormwater treatment facility for our 9th consecutive quarter in a row. So I want to really give a shout out and appreciation and thanks to our Public Works, Environmental, and Marine Terminal Maintenance teams for their hard work and dedication to ensuring we continue to meet these benchmarks every quarter. So 9 in a row. That's great. Next slide. Port maintenance staff conducted renovations at one of the port's airport retail properties. Their efficient work allowed the property to be put back on the market in a very timely manner. And this is part of our unified maintenance approach, and we're already seeing great cost effectiveness from their work. Next slide. Port maintenance staff has also updated all of the outdoor lighting at the Lacey CBC, or Commercial Building Center, to LED lighting. This will result in environmental efficiencies and cost savings. I don't have specific numbers for you right at this time, but I know that they've been calculated about what we can expect to save there. Next slide. I am also pleased to announce that the Swantown Marina and Boat Works has received an Environmental Stewardship Award from the Pacific Coast Congress of Harbor Masters and Port Managers. This was awarded by the Clean Marina Washington, a partnership of EnviroStars Cooperative, Northwest Marine Trades Association, and Puget Soundkeeper Alliance, as well as the Washington Sea Grant and Washington State Department of Ecology, Washington State Department of Natural Resources, and Parks and Recreation. Congratulations to TJ and his team. Next slide. So as we enter into these really time of good news with accelerating vaccination rates and some of the parameters in Thurston counties remaining to be able to keep us in phase 3. So as long as Thurston County remains in phase 3 of Governor Inslee's roadmap to recovery, the Port of Olympia Administrative Swantown Marina and Olympia Regional Airport offices will reopen to the public on Monday, April 19th. I'd first like to give appreciation to all of our staff who have remained working throughout this pandemic. While some of our staff have been diligently working from home, many of our operational staff members have been working on site over the past year. They have worked during unknown and sometimes scary times. Our staff have followed protocols and taken every precaution necessary to ensure our staff, customers, and the community remain safe while visiting our facilities. And again, I hesitate to take credit, any type of seems like credit for this. I am pleased to say that their diligent efforts are evident with the port not having any COVID cases amongst our staff. So to that staff, thank you for showing up every day, doing the high level work you always do, and ensuring the safety and health of all around you. I am very proud to have you working here with us. We will be making a press release either today or early tomorrow morning, and so the public will be apprised of our changes in port office hours. Next slide. And as you know, the Port of Olympia has launched our website on March 30th. This the new mobile-friendly, up-to-date website will provide the end user with easier and more intuitive navigation, improved online forms and calendar, and a cleaner and simplified graphical interface. You can visit portofolympia.com to explore the port's new website. And next slide. As always, we have several ways for the public to engage with us. Here are some easy ways to contact us, give us feedback, or request a conversation.
Thank you, Sam. And I hope that commissioners will join me in congratulating the port staff for surviving COVID as well as you did. It's a landmark that we're opening our port offices again. So thank you for that. Also, the website, you know, I'm enjoying using the website. Looks great. Commissioner McGregor, please.
I would just like to, in light of the fact that we're opening the offices on the 19th, do you have any idea on when we can plan to have commission meetings in person again? Is that in phase 4, or how is that gonna?
I don't have a date that I, as at the staff level, am looking for towards. We are exploring the options for having what many people are terming the hybrid option of having some type of a web interface where people can attend by Zoom or some other function and yet still be in person. Many jurisdictions are trying to figure this out. I've not seen one that really has a good plan laid out. If you know somebody, by all means, we're all ears. I think so. That's some of the staff work that we're trying to accomplish before we put a date forward. And then, of course, I want to be in active conversation with the commission for that.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner McGregor, this is Heather. I just happened to look at this requirement the other day, and one of the challenges is you still have to meet. If you're going to afford the public an opportunity, or you're going to do yourselves in person, then you still have to provide the physical opportunity for people to attend within the capacity limits, which are still 50% in phase 3. And so by the time you add staff and other people, some jurisdictions that I've worked with have found that difficult to accommodate in their existing spaces. So I think that's the physical space challenge. After you get all the port people there is what can present a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you, Executive Director Gibney, for that report. Let's move on to the litigation report. Heather, hi.
Hi, Commissioner Downey. And at this, my last regular meeting serving as your Port Legal Counsel, I am pleased to report I have no litigation.
Well, I'd just like to say publicly, Heather, you've been a joy to work with, really have. And a joy both in terms of your personality and your expertise in legal matters. We've been through a lot together, the three commissioners and yourself and our executive director. So thank you so much for your years of service.
Oh, you're welcome. I wasn't looking for gratuitous feedback. I was just really happy not to be leaving anything behind for my replacement. So I appreciate that, and I'll be working with her to get and Executive Director Gibney to get things effectively transitioned. But I have nothing to report.
Could I just echo what Commissioner Downing was saying? I've spent a number of years with you as legal counsel at this port, and I wondered why you were so happy tonight. So now I know. But thank you for your years of dedicated service and providing us with excellent legal advice as we've needed it. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. It was the vacation and the second dose of the vaccine, really had nothing to do with you guys.
I'm just going to double check with Aspen if there's anybody that'd like to give public comment. We didn't have any folks sign up before noon today, but I'd just like to extend that to the folks, the attendees that are with us tonight.
Commissioner Downing, Jill Wolf has her hand up.
Hello, Jill Wolf, you please go ahead.
Actually, it's Richard Wolf.
Richard Wolf. Okay, then.
It comes in to apologize for that.
Okay.
Just a couple things. First, I'd like to give a shout out to Jenny and her project team. They did a marvelous job on that website revision, and I've used it several times, and it's so much nicer, and it's so easy to find things. And I know there's a lot of hard work put into that, and sometimes you don't get enough credit. And I really want everybody to understand how much better it is and how much work they put into it. So way to go, Jenny and her team. The other, just real quick, is I want to say goodbye to Heather. Great job you've been doing. We're going to miss you. And one of these days I'm going to get down and see your new office. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Thank you. Does anybody else like to give public comment at this time on any matter facing the port?
Not seeing any other hands.
Not seeing any other hands. And so any commissioner comment from Commissioner McGregor, Zeta, or Downing?
No, I had my say. Thank you. But I do like the website. It is working very well.
Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is the consent calendar, which includes the approval of the minutes of March 8, 2021 commission meeting, the March 15, 2021 commission work session, and the March 22, 2021 commission meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Passes. Thank you. Action calendar, no items. Moving to the action other calendar. The first item is called LAYBERTH Opportunity with our own Len Fosher. Hi, Len.
Good evening, Commissioners. Len Fosher, proudly serving as your Marine Terminal Director here at the port. And again, coming in forward in front of you with a LAYBERTH opportunity. Next slide, Aspen, please. So this is very similar as you saw with what we had with the MARAD LAYBERTH. LAYBERTH again is dockage without cargo operations. Matson is the co-signer on this lease opportunity. Matson is a U.S. flag ship operator. They do a lot with the U.S. flag trade to Hawaii, Alaska, Guam. Jones Act trade is their primary business model, and who we're signing with is Matson Navigation Company, which is a subsidiary of Matson Inc., which is publicly traded. The requirement they have is a 5-year LAYBERTH for one of their vessels. Next slide, please. All right, so this is the picture of the ship, the motor vessel Manalai. It is a 681-foot vessel with a 98-foot beam. Its max draft is 30 feet, was built in 2006. It is a container ship, diesel propulsion, and again, like I said, US flagged. Next slide, please. The requirement will put them for dockage at berths 1 and part of 2. It would be for 5 years, commencing roughly on May 8th of this year, ending June 30th, 2026. One requirement for this is the port would be adding shore power, and I'll talk more about that in a later slide, but in the approximate in-house cost estimate is $25,000 for that. And kind of the why. This is a vessel that's going to be in line to back up some of their service that they do to Hawaii. So other trade that they're doing primarily out of Tacoma, back and forth out to the Hawaii business, or other trades that they may be doing. If one of their vessels were to have any challenges or were to go down for a bit, they'd be able to pull this vessel up into their fleet and continue their service. Next slide, please. To give you kind of a picture for the vessel placement, you can see the warehouse there, the square in the middle. That's berth 1 extending into 2, and you can see the log ship where that would be located north of that. Next slide. Kind of similar to what we did last time. With the port's obligation is 5 years of dockage. Any lines, or the customer would be paying for labor for that. The port will install the electrical upgrades that I'll talk some more about here in a minute. And any other additional services that would be required, the port would charge a tariff. So similarly, Matson would pay for dockage, its own utilities, its own insurance and coverage, and any other services it would need. Next slide, please. Here's a list of comps that I got, and this is similar, or it's actually right off of what I had provided for the LAYBERTH, the MARAD LAYBERTH agreement, showing you kind of some different price ranges that that were out there at different times. Next slide, please. So through our negotiations, the port was able to get $2,100 a day plus leasehold excise tax. It's a 5-year term, as I said before, with an annual increase of 3% starting July 1st. The first increase would be in 2022. They do have a provision for a max of 90 days per term year of going off when they're off the dock for half rent. So that scenario that I gave, if they were to backfill for another ship, let's say went to the shipyard and they needed to bring this ship off the dock, they would have up to 90 days per year, term year, to in which time they'd be charged half dockage. It gives them holding the right of the dock, while at the same time, but gives them some cost relief for not being here during those days. And that maxes out at 90 days. And those 90 days are not cumulative. That is per term year. The customer will get exclusive use of those berths. And there is a 60-day mutual cancellation notice that's provided. And our lease agreement was reviewed by Schwab, Williamson, and Wyatt. Same law firm that did the last review. Next slide, please. So some of the electrical upgrades that we would be looking to do, and this would go. We would commence this upon signing of contracts, and then the port would be and is already engaged prior with PSE and has already started some discussions with Puget Sound Energy on on the installation of shore power, and would work with them to continue this. The vessel will require 600 amp, 400 volt, and the upgrade estimate, in-house estimate, is at $25,000. Timeline is roughly 1 to 2 months to complete this. And prior to this contract, the electrical being completed, if that duration of time exists, there would be a diesel generator that would be used in the interim, and that would be provided by Matson. Next slide, please. So this is a diagram from a Google Earth shot. In the bottom right, you see a gold box, and that's the shutoff. That's where a shutoff would be added by the transformer that currently exists. And then you're going to have some cable, heavy-duty cable extending out to the dock with what they call baloney cable, is what we think we're going to be using, extending out to the ship. At that point, that's where a plug outlet for the ship would be used and a meter would be installed. What we expect is that we would be doing rebilling of electrical back to the customer based off of the meter readings. Next slide, please. So in going into the pro forma, here are the financial assumptions that we used. I already noted the $2,100 a day for revenue. A dockage increase 3% annually. We use the date range of, it's May 8th through June 30th. M&R, I put in for $20,000 per year. Port pays $25,000 for shore power. 90 days of half dockage. So I maximized that in the pro forma, saying that they're going to use all of those 90 days at half dockage per term year. Berth 1 and 2 are fully depreciated, and the discount rate of 3% was used. So we can go to the next slide, please. And here's the pro forma. You can go over that in detail to see, again, dockage right at the top. Tie up and let go, I've put in $1,000, sorry about that, $1,000 net per year. And that's to just give you an estimate, because that's based off of our labor rates marked up. We have the miscellaneous costs, as I said, $20,000 per year, and I put 10 for first year, 10 last year because of the continuation. That off dock of 90 days is in there at half rate. We have power to the dock decreased in year 1, and that brings in our cash flow, and of course depreciate, and then the discount rate giving us the NPV of $3.2 million. Next slide, please. Again, there's the net present value of $3.2 million. Cash would be 3.5 or almost 3.36. And then annual cash flow rates range between $312,000 in the last year to $727,000 in the first year. And a lot of that pertains to, for example, in that last year, that's where we've taken off 90 days in that last year. They may not use all that duration of time. Next slide, please. So here's some next steps that are involved. Right now we're just waiting for final signature. We got approval on final wording, so we're just waiting signature now. As soon as we get contract signing on both sides, we'll start moving forward with the electrical upgrades. We've made arrangements for the ferry to clear, and I want to go over this real quick because I think it's an important item. So through execution of this contract, the port expects the prompt departure of that Evergreen State ferry. In accordance with the port tariff, the port has the right to have the ferry move to make space for the new LAYBERTH. The vessel owner has been notified of the need to depart prior to Matson's ship's arrival, and any advances paid by the owner, less expenses incurred, will be credited upon his departure. And again, vessel ETA, May 8th, 2021. Next slide, please. And I did include what a motion would be in the, this was set up for advisory, now it's action others. So there is a motion or a potential motion that you can consider that I would have brought for next meeting that's included in the write-up.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you. At this point, I want to ask my fellow commissioners if you have any questions or comments for Lynn.
I have a couple, if I can, just for clarity. You mentioned this is a U.S. vessel, U.S. company, and merchant marine labor on the ship. The one-time charge for the power is the $25,000. That's just to get the appropriate plug in installed on the transfer station that will allow then Matson's ship to plug in via their own baloney cable into our power with a meter installed, and they will be paying the metered rate, whatever that is. And then they would also pay for the diesel generator that's there, would be necessary until it becomes able to tie into the power on the port. And if they stay on berth and they don't take care of that night, and they don't or can't or don't need to use the ship to leave for that 90-day option. That's every calendar year or every
Term year.
term year. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Then that net flow increases by about $94,000 per year, a little bit more because every year the rate goes up. So that's a positive. We'll still be getting dockage money, even though the ship may not be there. This allows them to be able to have that berth to put the ship back in when they're done using it at the end of that 90-day period. And so we'll be continuing to get dockage on that. And I take that's in the initial fee you had up there. And I was trying to find that chart. Let me go to that chart.
Doing for the pro forma, Commissioner?
Yes. Slide 12 or 11 or something like that. In any event, so each term year they don't use that off dock 90-day provision. It improves our revenue income by $94,500, correct? Or part that.
Correct, or any portion that they don't
Portion,
take into of that 90 days, correct?
Right. And so are you anticipating what kind of maintenance or repair do you think you might be experiencing as a result of the ship being there? Any estimate in your opinion?
For my M&R that I put in, I believe I rounded high. My thought process was sharing all the electrical power that's out there. The one thing that, I mean, the port will own that electrical power upgrade once we put it in. I want to make sure we have maintenance on there. I just wanted to make sure we were taking that into account for this estimate. So I've got that 10,000, 20,000, 20,000, and then 2026 at 10,000 for M&R.
Okay. And will the ship be empty when it comes in, or will it have empty containers on it, or
My
Yes.
understanding, Commissioner, is it's coming in an empty status.
empty status? Okay. I think that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner McGregor. Commissioner Zita, any questions at this time?
Yeah, thanks for putting up the pro forma, Len. Can we go back there, please? Great. I'm comparing this to the pro forma for the ready reserve ships, the MARAD ships that ended up not coming. And as you said, it's kind of close to that. There's a couple things that were on the MARAD pro forma that are not on here, and one that I want to ask about those.
Sure.
Berth 1 repair. There's $375,000 in berth 1 repair that was on the pro forma for the MARAD ships. I don't see that here.
Sure, and Commissioner, we can certainly consider that if you wanted to do the math on that. When I presented it last time, it's being a separate project. It would be something I'd be coming to commission to anyway if we're going to do the berth 1 rehabilitation. I decided it really is separate. It doesn't necessarily belong here. You can consider that as part of the calculation if you wanted to, and just deduct off the $375,000. But are we going to do that? Is that going to move forward at this time? That's up to the commission's discretion. This project would be independent of that. So I don't know if you necessarily need to keep that in mind. I just reconsidered what I had put in last time. And I know I always said when I presented it with the MARAD contract proposal and PowerPoint and pro forma, that technically I did not need to have that component, but I just put it kind of as something you could see. Here you could do the same thing and deduct $375,000 from this if you wish.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, since this ship, if it were to come, would have exclusive use of both berth 1 and berth 2. And since berth 1 does apparently need $375,000 in repairs, I think it makes sense to keep that in mind in this pro forma. The other cost that appeared on the MARAD ship that doesn't appear here is security costs. There were over $1 million in security costs for 5 years with the MARAD ships. Will there be security costs for these ships?
No, that's a great question, Commissioner. So the answer is no on a short answer. The port has currently has its own security. That was additional security that was going to be required. If you remember on that pro forma, there's also revenue for security as well. So there's no revenue for security here. There's no expense for security here. There's no additional security expected.
Okay. So we should expect about 400,000 though in berth one costs, berth one repairs.
If the commission moves forward with that project, but again, that would be, it doesn't have to move forward with that project. That would be up to the commission.
I respect that is, those are repairs that staff has recommended that we need, and this ship would have exclusive use of berth one, so I think we should keep that on our radar.
Fair point. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Zito and Commissioner McGregor. Before we move to, I guess you would call it discussion, I'd like to keep the discussion and the question separate, if I could. I have two questions of Len. I'm concerned about this ship, 681 feet long, and our ability to work with two log ships simultaneously while this 681-foot Matson ship is tied to the dock. Can you comment on that?
Yes, Commissioner. The answer is we would be working off of berth 3 for the log ships, and if there were two log ships that needed to come in, they'd have to be scheduled. And that would be with any other business that would be coming in, including any cattle business or any other break bulk business. It would be scheduled into berth 3.
Well, Len, I didn't quite hear you. If there are two log ships, what would you have to do for the two log ships? In other words, did you say you're going to have to stagger them one at a time, or I just didn't
Yes,
hear you?
so all the log ships would have to go to berth 3, and they'd be scheduled in for berth 3. So it would be one after the other. And
Oh, I see.
We haven't had, it's been a long time since there's been two log ships at the same time, Commissioner. I'm trying to date back. Maybe when I first started, we had about 5 years ago, maybe we had two log ships, but it's been a long time since two log ships have been on the dock at the same time.
Okay, I didn't think it was that long. I mean, it seems that I recollect seeing two ships at once, but you're saying that one might have been a cattle ship and one a log ship?
That's correct, Commissioner. And we would have to schedule other vessels in between the log business on berth 3.
Okay, thanks. My other question is, you say in the introduction that there's a 60-day mutual cancellation notice. Is that encumbered in any way, or is that unencumbered? Like either party can cancel the contract for any reason within 60 days?
Unencumbered, any party can cancel within 60 days, Commissioner.
I see. Well, so at this point, if there are no more questions, I'd like to turn to discussion amongst the commissioners, because we are, as I said, and as Commissioner Zita pointed out, we are, and Commissioner McGregor, we are fast tracking this item. So Commissioner McGregor or Commissioner Zita, do you have any concerns at this time?
Well, my concern is we don't know what all the concerns are because we have not heard public comment and we have not had time to consider this in advisory.
I don't have any concerns because this is very similar to the MARAD, only this is one ship and not two. Some of the concerns by citizens back then was it could be used to transport military. There were other things, environmental issues with something to do with one of the bottoms of one of the ships had been in an accident and had it been repaired and those kind of things. This ship does not fall into those categories. So I don't have any concerns with this. It's very similar to our MARAD agreement that we approved about 2 months ago. That didn't come to fruition, unfortunately, but there's another opportunity here. And I think Len's done a good job of getting out there, beating the bush, finding something and seeing about getting it secured. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McGregor and Zita. I wrote to Len this morning and he responded back And so I do have some concerns. And first of all, I'd like to say, sounds like an excellent piece of business, okay? I mean, Mattson and I go way back. I used to work in a PVC pipe company, and we shipped innumerable containers over to Hawaii. So if anybody's been to Hawaii and you enjoy going to the supermarket or you enjoy running water in your hotel, it's because of Mattson pretty much. And so that's how important Mattson is to the commerce, at least of Hawaii. I'm sure equally important to Alaska. I also view this as a foothold in the door of a very new and important piece of business. My concern is this, that Aspen, can you go back to the slide that shows the comparable rates from other ports? There you go. So my concern is this, is that we didn't have a real good explanation of why we lost the MARAD ships, but this, you know, went back and I researched what we were proposing to charge MARAD. And so MARAD was basically going to pay almost within a few dollars, the exact same amount per day for 2 ships that we want to charge Mattson for 1 ship. So I feel like, and I look at Tacoma, Washington, that would charge Mattson or a comparable ship, $1,000, $1,050 per day. And we want to charge Mattson $2,100 per day, which is double. My concern, along with that 60-day cancellation clause, is that as soon as a berth opens up in Tacoma, Mattson is going to move that ship up there. So, you know, we're really not talking a 5-year lease here, even though the pro forma is, you know, very good. And it's you know, and again, Len, it's an excellent piece of business. But, you know, I mean, since you put this slide in the, you know, I'm looking at this slide and I'm saying, you know, why are we charging Mattson so much? So I'm going to make, you know, I'm poised to make an amendment to this motion tonight that we charge Mattson $1,900 per day, not $2,100 per day. And then we allow Mattson to bring in a second ship tied side by side, if they so desire, for an additional $200 a day. And that would make, in my opinion, this contract identical to the MARAD contract, which we did not get. So, you know, I'm putting on my economics hat here and I'm saying, you know, it sounds great that Mattson wants to pay this much, but I doubt they want to pay that much for 5 years. So I'm being realistic, and I guess I am stepping outside my lane, but, you know, I feel like, you know, I'm looking at these numbers, I'm saying, really? How are we going to get $2,100 per day when you put up a slide here that it's basically $700 to $1,600 per day?
Commissioner, I'm not sure, would you like me to respond? I know you had.
Okay, Len, go for it. Yeah, that's pretty much the gist of my position tonight, Len.
Well, great. And thank you for your comment on that, Commissioner. I will say that, first of all, the sheet that I showed you was a lot of different rates of some of what MARAD had been paying. Some of those had been negotiated several years back. My understanding, the Tacoma rate is for those pre-positioned ships that you've seen there for several years alongside up in Tacoma at a private dock. But with all the negotiations at the marine terminal, we looked to weigh several options, including price, as part of why the customer would choose to succeed with us. So in this case, I think there's a lot of items, including proximity with their business in Tacoma, along with we have a MITSA secure facility, a great reputation, and we had the willingness to move forward on the electrical project upgrades. So I think these are a lot of some of the loose ends that we've got in place, and a great team. I'm sure you would agree that our maintenance team, fantastic folks, ready to move forward. And we sought the opportunity, negotiated in good faith, and came to this price. So at the end, I think it's fair for both and beneficial for the port as well as for the customer.
Commissioner McGregor, Commissioner Zita, any comments on what I've said?
Well, I'm not going to second guess staff on their contract negotiations on the price, but I do have a simple question of fact. And what is the expected lifetime of the shore power?
That's a good question, Commissioner Zeta. So we have not, we've been doing all in-house estimates on that as we would go forward with getting a project manager aligned with the folks that would be taking on the project. That's certainly one we would consider. I don't have an answer for you at this time.
Do you have a ballpark? 20 years, 50 years?
I would say 5 to 10, and with M&R in there. So if I said 10 years, I think that's a conservative estimate. I see a head nod from Sam. I think that probably a fair estimate.
Really? Just 10 years?
It's on the dock. We're not enclosing it below. So I think that would be one we would want to, it would involve additional maintenance on. So I would say 10 years is a fair estimate.
Yeah. You know, depreciation was included in the pro forma for the MARAD deal. And I think it'd be useful to have depreciation in this pro forma too.
Commissioner Zeta, I did include depreciation.
Oh, you did? Okay.
There's no depreciation on berths 1 and 2.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Len, the transformer box or the electrical power, is that coming out of what used to be there for the container cranes?
It'll connect through there, Commissioner
Through there,
Gregor.
right.
It's still coming. It's going to be stored in the shutoff is going to be back at the transformer. That's not too far from where the people gate. It's right.
Yeah,
by
the pedestrian gate out there,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, and then it'll be run through the crane, what used to be the crane power supply,
That's exactly right.
which has been there for how many years now? So quite a
Several years.
long time.
Yeah, but they'll put the on off right at the transformer.
Right. Okay.
Thank you, commissioners. Any other questions or comments about this item? Okay. Hearing none, I propose the following motion. I move to authorize the executive director to enter into the LAYBERTH agreement as presented between the Port of Olympia and Matson Navigation Company. Let me start over. I'm gonna scratch that, start over. I move to authorize the executive director to enter into a LAYBERTH agreement between the Port of Olympia and Matson Navigation Company for a 5-year dockage and operations contract at the Marine Terminal's berths at the rate of $1,900 per day, and with the additional second ship of equal or lesser length and beam for additional $200 a day to be tied alongside. So that's my motion. I'm looking for a second.
Wait, would you say that again?
I would be happy to. I move to authorize the executive director to enter into a LAYBERTH agreement between the Port of Olympia and Matson Navigation Company for a 5-year dockage at the rate of $1,900 per day for the first ship and $200 a day for a second ship of equal or lesser length and beam for additional $200 a day to be tied alongside of the first ship.
Okay, so just to be clear, this is not what staff is proposing. This was your special proposal.
That's right, Commissioner Zeta. As I mentioned in the discussion, I feel that this is akin to a new piece of business that Matson should be offered a rate that is not more expensive than what we were going to charge the MARAD ships. If you recall, the MARAD ships were 2 ships for a total of $2,100 per day. And I feel that we didn't get that contract. And so I just would like to.
Point of order.
Can
We
I
can
finish my
discuss.
sentence, please? What?
Point of order.
Point of order, go ahead.
discussion will come after a second, if there is a second.
Oh, I see. Very well, Commissioner Zito. I was just clarifying the motion that I made, but so, okay, so you got the motion. Good. So I've stated my motion twice. Is there a second? Motion fails for lack of a second. Is there anybody else would like to make a different motion?
Before I make a motion, I'd like to hear public comment before we move to that part, if we could. Is that
We
appropriate?
sure could. Yeah, we sure could, Commissioner McGregor. So at this time, we're going to stop discussion of the LAYBERTH contract and move on to the second item under the action other calendar. And after discussion of that item, then we'll ask for public comment, and then we'll ask for votes on these two action other items. So at this time, I'd like to move on to, stay tuned, Lynn. I'd like to move on to the review of work session topics. And Sam, our own Sam Gibney presenting.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm having problems unmuting tonight. Aspen, next slide. So we have a bit of housekeeping to do tonight and just aligning our work for the coming months. Just to start back with the purpose of work sessions, and there are three primary purposes for a work session. One is for the commissioners to informally discuss port issues and exchange ideas. The second is for staff to present topics for preliminary feedback. And the third is for the executive director to update the commission on business, operational, and strategic issues for informal discussion. Next slide. There are 4 ways to add a topic to a work session. The first is the commission president and the executive director agree and schedule those topics. The second is a commissioner may make a motion to add a topic at the beginning of any work session. The third is a commissioner may request a topic be added to a future agenda by sending the request to the executive director, who will in turn relay the request to the president. And the fourth is a commissioner can make a motion to add a topic to a future work session at a regular meeting under other business. Then the ED will maintain a list of upcoming topics. Next slide. Since we've been working on our processes, we've had a couple of things that I've been keeping track of that have not seen the benefit of having had the full commission weigh in on whether they'd like them to proceed. I've listed, here's the topics that I'm keeping track of. The ones in green are ones that have been agreed to by the commission, either in a retreat or by motion or by way of the budget. And so these ones don't require any further action. We have those on the list, and I'm working to schedule those along with the president. The topics in yellow are topics that are proposed by staff. I'm just listing these here for your notice. I will continue to work with the president to make sure that he is willing to have those scheduled. And then the topics in gray are ones that have been posed by a single commissioner, and there's not yet been clear direction from the commission as a whole as to whether to add these to the list of topics to be scheduled. And so this is the housekeeping that we're here to attend to this evening, is to get clear direction on these topics listed in gray. Next slide. This view demonstrates how staff is anticipating scheduling these topics, and we'll take a closer look at in the upcoming slides. So I don't expect you to really be able to read this one. It's just that, no, I am looking out to the rest of the year as to how we get things scheduled. Next slide. In this slide, the color coding simply depicts the month, and then the darker shade is for the second work session of the month. So for a May, you can see we have 2 shades of green. Those lighter greens are proposed for the first meeting, and the darker shades of green for the second meeting. Same as in June. Next slide. We have here really just scheduled out through August, and you can see that beginning in August, we really start turning our attention to the upcoming year and the budgeting process. This is not to say that there won't be other work session topics that come up during this time that we'll have, but our work sessions do tend to be taken up with budget, and we also just aren't quite anticipating what topics may come up for a work session. So, but you can see we really turn our attention to the budgeting for the latter part of the year. Next slide. I'd also like to make an additional recommendation. I don't think there's any actual action required of the commission at this point. And one is we've had our work sessions typically for 90 minutes. We'd started putting a 2-hour hold on the commission calendars. And I think that this has been interpreted then that we're always going to try to fill those 2 hours. I'm recommending that we go back to the typical work session duration is 90 minutes, but then that we have the option to extend to 2 hours as topics require. And next slide. And this is a sample motion for your consideration. It's just to add the topics. I listed these out here, and certainly it is up to the commission to decide which of these topics that you would actually like to have added to our list of topics to schedule. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Sam. Commissioners McGregor, Commissioner Zeta, do you have any comment or questions?
Well, thank you for this review. It's been quite a while since we've done this, and it's a good thing to do. I think some of the things can be removed because we've already discussed them, and or the time has passed. So shall we go down the list? Do other commissioners have comments before we start going down the list?
Okay, thanks. Commissioner McGregor, do you have any comments before we start going down any particular list?
No, I've lost my video somewhere. I've got to find it. Go ahead.
Uh-oh, uh-oh. Well, Sam, I focused on the next 2 work sessions. So I think that, I'm with Commissioner Zeta if we kind of go down that list that you showed earlier slide, and then come back to these additions.
So this is different than what we have in our packet. I don't know whether the potential schedule that is in our packet is, if that slide is here or not. It was page 4, it was slide 4. So that's different, but that's pretty close. So can we go down the list? Contract for parliamentarian. As I recall, we discussed this at a work session and the commissioners agreed this was not something we wanted to do. Is that correct, fellow commissioners?
I don't remember agreeing not to do it.
I remember discussing it and we asked, are we interested? And there was not interest. What's your recollection?
My recollection is that we talked about this and we thought we would get some information on how much would it cost to have a parliamentarian observe our meetings and be ready to provide guidance if we started to stray. But that was what I remembered. And I don't know that we've heard, I think Ann McFarland was going to provide us with some contacts there and that the executive director would contact to find out what an hourly rate for a parliamentarian is and come back to the commission for further discussion.
What's your recollection, Commissioner Downing?
Well, thanks, Commissioner Zeta. Well, this particular one didn't come from me. To be honest, I can take it or leave it. I think that we seem to be, in my opinion, moving along quite smoothly this year. So I don't feel strongly about this one way or the other. I agree with Commissioner McGregor that, well, I actually agree that a good outcome for this is that if Sam thinks the cost is reasonable, just find somebody and have them show up and then announce that they're here, and we'll give them the floor periodically through a meeting, and it could be great. So I'm
Well,
open to it. But
Great. I'm glad to hear that you are both supportive of this. This was my suggestion, and my recollection was that the last time we discussed it, you felt it wasn't necessary. So we'll keep it on since you like the idea. Let's see. Commission Code of Conduct and Ethics Resolution is on there twice.
Right, and that's because we're anticipating that it will take 2 work sections for, and Heather Burgess is going to remain with this. She has, I believe, been seeking your input as individual commissioners, and she'd like to bring draft language back to you, and anticipating that it'll take 2 work sessions to review that.
That's all we need to know. It's going to take 2.
Okay.
June, potential partners for Destination Waterfront. That's over, right? So I had suggested this quite a few months ago. I think the time has passed, isn't it?
That's up to the commission. The consideration for future partnerships, I think we'll have many years to discuss that. But if the commission doesn't see a use for this at this time, we can certainly take it off.
Well, I saw a need for it quite a few months ago, but I think the time has passed.
okay.
So remove number 11. Is that what I'm looking at, or potential partners for Destination Waterfront?
Can we go back to the other slide, just because it does have numbers on it, and they're all these topics are listed on the other side.
It would be 12 then.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yep.
Yep.
So the 2 that I have on there, contracting process discussion, has to do with, for a couple of meetings, we were kept renewing contracts with different companies rather than going back out to bid after the contracts had expired. And I just wanted to have a discussion amongst the commissioners on what kind of a policy do we want to have when a contract expires? Do we want staff to be able just to, are we getting the best price depending on what that contract is for and who it's with? Or are we better off going back out for bids, and at what other levels that we want to see? Is it a dollar amount? Is it a time amount? I just think that because some of these we've been renewing year after year or every 5 years or whatever. And after a while, I seem to wonder, are we getting the best bang for our buck? So that was what that whole contract process discussion on-call contracts was about. So, and we've had a couple of them renew, and some have gone out to bid and some have just been renewed. So I just felt it was a policy question we should probably be talking about at the policy level. If my other commissioners don't feel
I agree
it's
with
important.
Commissioner McGregor. I think we've expressed our agreement on this at past meetings. Yeah.
Right. Me too.
Okay.
Good idea.
The other one I had on there was West Bay Yard Project briefing, and that was an up and coming project that was being brought before the city with the Hardell property, and it's gone through some gyrations. And my understanding was that they may be coming, or may be able to come give us a briefing on what that project is all about, because we are going to be sitting across the bay from it at some point, and I just thought it would be interesting for people to hear more about it.
I agree. That was time sensitive. I agree.
Good. Me too. Mm-hmm. While we're focused on this list, I feel like we have a lot of work session items, and Commissioner McGregor talked, I think at our last meeting, about being more efficient and working through these. I don't necessarily need to hear about the Harbor Patrol and on-water response. I reached out to TJ after an incident 2 or 3 months ago, and it's okay with me that TJ and Sam and the Harbor Patrol, but that's optional in my book. I'm always happy to hear from the Harbor Patrol, and if there are issues and we need to hear them, great, but I'm not, it's not something that I need to hear. So
Commissioner, if I might, we've been approached by some of our partners in providing on-water services, including the Olympia Fire Department, as well as the Thurston County Sheriff Department. There are some questions as to ownership of assets and long-term interlocal agreements that they wish to have addressed. So this wouldn't just be an update. It would actually be looking to the Commission for input on parameters of looking to modify the interlocal agreement.
oh, I see. Okay, great.
I'd also welcome the opportunity to welcome the new members and have an update on who's on the Harbor Patrol now.
Can you refresh my memory on what MFA organizational assessment? What?
Yes, that's the Mall Foster Alonji, and that's the firm that we just recently hired that is beginning their organizational assessment for us, and spoke at the retreat.
Okay, thank you. So are we pretty much in agreement on the list here?
So for the gray
What-
items, I've heard an agreement in principle for item 11. I've heard agreement to remove item 12. I've not heard from the commission on item 13.
Well, when we discussed this at a previous work session, I heard agreement from my fellow commissioners on this.
And,
Right.
and again, what I'm looking for is a clear direction. We've agreed that there would be a motion and clear direction. Sometimes in the meetings, it's really unclear to staff as to whether or not agreement has been reached.
If I could continue, fellow commissioners, do we agree that we prioritize community solar? And we would like to explore this.
I would agree that I would agree that we need to have more information on it rather than just participation. What does that mean? What's our cost? What are the benefits? What are the investment opportunity? What's the incentive? All that. But I would like to know more about it, because that is not in our budget this year either, I don't believe.
And specifically, we had agreed at our last work session that we would invite Mr. Mason Rolfe from Olympia Community Solar to provide a presentation on those items to us.
Right, Commissioner Zita. I mean, I support that. I mean, these are work session topics. These are not policy decisions. So I support a work session topic that is the presentation from Mason Rolfe regarding the Olympia Community Solar Farmers Market Project.
I think we were pretty clear about that. There is one thing that's missing here. It's something that's been outstanding for 2 years. Over a year ago, the commission agreed that we would like to take some step forward on a tribal honor statement or land acknowledgement. And staff was going to come back to us last year with something on that. And I would like to put this on our list to do.
And indeed, we've been making progress on that. In fact, I just spoke with Mr. Ray Peters today. We've been having one-on-one meetings with Chairman Chris Peters, and we have just one more commissioner to schedule for that. And then, so that should belong on this list. We have been making progress on that. We just need to schedule one more meeting, and then they would actually like to come to a work session and make a presentation to the public.
Then let's put that on the list.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so I trust
Yeah.
that staff is tracking what we're going to add to our motion
So,
tonight.
yes, I am for the motion, and that's a good way to complete the loop here to make sure that we have clear direction.
So will staff be able to put that up on the screen for us?
I know we don't have the ability to change this, but if you put the motion up, I can tell you which one. So on this one, we would have the potential partners for destination waterfront. That would be stricken. And then we would add one for tribal acknowledgement statement.
And you know, while we're talking about future work sessions, I would like to see a work session, fuel dock review, an analysis. You know, are we meeting our goals on the fuel dock or not? If not, why not? And what can we do to meet those goals? And also, you know, fine tune the financial analysis that was done initially, probably a good 5 years ago. So, you know, I would like the commissioners to support me in just having a discussion about the fuel dock and where we're at with the fuel dock after, what is it, 3 full years of operation.
Okay.
Okay, well, I
Good with
move
that?
to add the following topics to the list of upcoming work session topics. Fuel dock review and analysis, tribal honor statement, contracting process discussion on call contracts, participation in Olympia Community Solar Project at the Farmers Market, and West Bay Yard project briefing.
Thank you, Commissioner. It's been moved to add the topics as listed here, as well as the fuel dock and the tribal honor statement. Is there a second on this motion?
Well, I'm prepared to provide that second. I would like to have public comment before we move on either one of these two items tonight.
Very well. Is there a second? I'll just get the first and the second out of the way.
I'll
Okay,
second.
great. Great, thank you, commissioners. Executive Director, do you have anything else to talk to us about?
Nope.
Or has this been a good discussion and you're getting what you need from this? Okay. And one more thing. So just to review, Sam, for the benefit of all the commissioners, including myself, April 19th is what, a week from today?
Mhm.
We're going to have Craig Chance from the Housing Authority of Thurston County. We're going to have Mary Hall talking to us about county redistricting.
Mhm.
I think we had ferry removal with Len Fosher, but depending on how the rest of the evening goes, that might not be, you know,
Correct.
that's something that I think is expendable.
Correct.
The following work session, I think I only see in bold print is the small cities program. So, you know, just want to reaffirm that those things have been planned in
Correct.
dark pencil, so to speak. Okay. Okay, good. Thank you, Sam.
Mhm.
Thank you, fellow commissioners. Good discussion. At this time, we'll move back to our agenda, if I can find it, which is public comment on action, other items, and commission response. So we have 2 action other items tonight. Folks, we have the LAYBERTH opportunity and the review of work session topics. So I invite you to speak on either one of those topics at this time. I don't think we have a list for this, so I'm just going to ask 2 participants raised hands. Thank you. And I'm going to check on my participant list. Well, I see a hand from Deborah Patton. Ms. Patton, would you like to speak?
Yes, I want to speak to both of these real quick because I'm a member of the Port of Olympia Citizens Advisory Committee, and I've worked on two subcommittees that relate to both of these topics. The second one about the work session topics regarding a parliamentarian, that was something we discussed during the, I think it was 2018 when we talked about Port Commission meeting operations. And we were saying that we were very much in favor of following Robert's Rules of Order, and Robert Rules of Order does call for a parliamentarian. So I think this would be appropriate, and the POCAC at that time was in favor of it, and I imagine they still are. On the other issue about the LAYBERTH, the POCAC was in favor of the LAYBERTH agreement originally with Ready Reserve. In this one, I think they'll also be in favor. We meet on next Tuesday, the 20th, and we'll discuss it there, I'm sure. Matson sails out of Tacoma. It was a big win for Tacoma to get that business from Port of Seattle. And my son works regularly. He's in local 23, and he works regularly on those ships. So it'd be the proximity to have their LAYBERTH ship here in Olympia would be very expedient should they need it if one of their other vessels goes out of service. One thing that the POCAC would be really excited about is the opportunity for the shore power. That was one of the main reasons we were excited about the Ready Reserve. That failed, I think, partly because it needed 4 tugboats at the ready. And this one will not need 4 tugs. So that's very good. Also, it shouldn't be an issue because a container ship, when it's empty, floats really high, and there's no concern about needing dredging. So I don't think there'd be any detriment or any additional obligation to the port to bring this LAYBERTH aboard. So I'm all in favor of it, and we'll definitely discuss it at the POCAC meeting next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Patton, for your comments. Next, I see a hand raised by John Cezanne, if I pronounce that right.
Hi. Yeah, you did
John.
pronounce it correctly. Thank you. I don't have a comment. I just have a question I'd like to ask. Does berthing, a large container ship of that size pose any environmental problems or risks to our little inlet here? That's all I wanted to ask about.
Thank you, John. I'm sure one of the commissioners will address that in the comments. Anybody else like to give public comment at this time?
Commissioner Downing, we have Richard Wolf with his hand up again.
Oh, hi, Mr. Wolf. Please go ahead.
Yes, I have a couple questions about the LAYBERTH. I was a little bit confused about what a mutual cancellation, that term that was used by in the presentation. I'm not sure I understand that. Either party, it sounded like later it was either party could cancel. So I'm not sure how that works. I'd like to know. And I also, based on what your commissioners have talked about, one of the concerns was that they might cancel early and go up to Tacoma. And given that, I was wondering, is there any consideration given to cancellation penalties? You make it available to them for 5 years. If somebody wants to quit early, maybe they have to pay for that. You might want to consider that as a penalty, so that it would make it less attractive to go up to Tacoma. I don't know if that's been considered or not. I would suggest it. One other thing I had a question about is that you did talk about the ferry very quickly, but I'm not comfortable with that. It's been there for a long time. It's hard to get that thing moved, and I don't even know can you tell us where you're going to move that? I mean, you haven't got much time to get that thing out of there. So if this goes through, so I'd be interested to know what you're really going to do with that ferry. And then finally, there was some talk about refurbishing possibilities on berths 1 and 2. And I just wondered if you can do that while that ship is in. I don't know if refurbishing can be done or if that ship has to move out so that you can refurbish. So those are some of the questions I had. I'd like some answers to. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Anybody else at this time would like to give public comment on these two action and other items? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to turn to the next item, which is commission response to public comment. Commissioner Zita, would you like to go first?
Sure, I want to thank everyone who provided comment. And public comment is really important to us so that we can try and catch things we might have missed. For example, Mr. Cezanne, does berthing a large vessel pose any environmental risks? Good question. If there's fuel aboard, it could potentially leak. Are there other environmental risks? I'd like staff input on that. I'd also like staff input on Mr. Wolf's good questions. What about cancellation penalties? And what about repairing berth 1? Is that complicated if there's a ship at berth 1?
I would recommend Commissioner Downing that we let our expert staff person, Len Foucher, respond to some of those questions that were asked about the lay berth. So I'll let him entertain those.
Thank you, Commissioner Zita and Commissioner McGregor. Reserve my comments for after. I'm going to go ahead and ask our Marine Terminal Director to just say again about the mutual cancellation aspect, the cancellation penalty aspect. I think you already spoke about the ferry, but if you can say another line or two about that. And finally, the refurbishing of berth 1 cannot occur while this ship is tied up to the dock. Len, would you mind weighing in on this at this time?
Thank you, commissioners. So I'll start with the rehabilitation of berth 1. Yes, we can do that work while the vessel is docked alongside. Same condition as when we were moving with the MARAD LAYBERTH. We can do that work while the vessel's tied up. The second question I think was asked on the mutual cancellation. So it is mutual cancellation. Either party can give without cause. Part of negotiations, you try to get different. We did discuss cancellation penalties, and what we were able to get was up to the 60-day cancellation as the only penalty. So we weren't able to get anything else. That was part of our negotiation, and this is how we were able to move that forward. But 60 days cancellation, either party can give a notice, and you have to incur that 60-day as the penalty as well. You can't just leave the dock early saying I gave notice. It's 60 days. You have to pay a dockage. Regarding the ferry, and so in the unforeseeable situation, the ferry owner did not comply with getting underway as we requested. The port can arrange for a tug to move the ferry away from the terminal and remain tied alongside for safety, with all costs incurred and risk of damage going to the ferry owner's account. With that said, it is port's expectation that the ferry owner will move his vessel in a timely manner and without issue. And my last discussion with him on Friday was that he was making some arrangements for another dock to move his vessel. If I missed any of those questions, commissioners, environmental, Commissioner Zita, your question on that. This vessel regularly, as U.S. flagged vessels do, it goes to shipyard for its maintenance and repair. It's a 2006 build, rather modern for U.S. flagged vessels. I don't see any other environmental impacts than the ones that you were saying, Commissioner Zita, of monitoring for any other types of spills or issues. And part of the contract is anything is there is indemnification to the port for any responsibility that the vessel would have. And like many of the Jones Act ships, they have P&I insurance that covers the vessel for any type of spill damage and a spill response plan for anything that would happen. Did I miss a question? I know there were a few there, and I believe I hit most of them, if not all. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you, Lynn, for that. And thank you, fellow commissioners, for your comments as well. Thank you, Mr. Wolf, for some very good questions, and Mr. Cezanne and Deb Patton for your comments as well. You know, I think that I've stated my position earlier in the discussion, so I won't belabor it at this point.
So I think a motion is in order at this point. So I would move to authorize the executive director to sign the 5-year LAYBERTH agreement between the Port of Olympia and Matson Navigation.
So it's been moved to authorize the executive director to enter into a LAYBERTH agreement as presented between the Port of Olympia and Matson Navigation Group. Did I correctly state that, Commissioner McGregor?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there a second? I second that. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, please say nay.
Nay, on the grounds that we're not following our process and we have had inadequate opportunity for public comment.
Motion passes. Thank you, Len, for that presentation tonight, and good luck with. You know, you're not home yet, but you're really close. So let's hit a home run on this baby. Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item, we have a motion on the table that Commissioner Zeta presented. Commissioner Zeta, I'm sorry, I don't have that right in front of me, that little list. Aspen, can you pull up that list of the proposed motion for the work session items?
I move to add the following topics to the list of upcoming work session topics: tribal honor statement, ferry analysis, fuel dock analysis and review, contracting process discussion on contracts, participation in Olympia Community Solar Project at Farmers Market, and West Bay Yard project briefing.
Very
Nice.
good. It's been,
I
okay,
seconded
great.
that, yes.
And we have it's been moved to add the following 6 topics as presented by Commissioner Zeta. Commissioner McGregor has seconded. Commissioner Zeta, yes?
5
There's
topics.
5.
5, excuse me. It's been moved to add 5 topics to the list of upcoming work session topics. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion
Aye.
passes. Thank you, commissioners. Well, next on the agenda is commission reports and discussion. Commissioners, who would like to go first?
Well, I can go first. I have nothing to report.
Commissioner? How about you, Commissioner Zeta?
I attended the TRPC meeting. We completed the review of the executive director. I sent the meeting notes to commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner Zeta. And as well, I'd like to report on that, just that Mark Daly's doing an outstanding job. He declined a pay increase, but I believe the executive committee urged him to take some additional vacation days. So that's great. So he's doing a great job over there. It's a joy to be in those meetings. So. Well then, any other business at this time, commissioners?
Nope.
Great. Meeting announcements. So, yeah, a week from today at 1 p.m., April 19th, we have the Economic Development Corporation meeting which is the economic EDC of the port, not to be confused with the other EDC over in Lacey. We also have a commission work session at 2:30 p.m. Then on April 20th at 6 p.m., the public is invited to attend the Zoom meeting of the Citizens Advisory Committee meeting. And finally, on April 26th at 5:30 p.m., we have a commission meeting. So that's it for announcements or meeting announcements for pretty much the balance of April. Okay, I think we're done with our business tonight. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
second? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Have a great evening. Thank you all. Good night.
Thanks, commissioners. Bye.